My name is Madison Miller. I was 13 the summer my family flew to Abu Dhabi for a month-long dream vacation, leaving me behind with nothing but a city transit pass. I can still picture it clearly. The chaotic energy of Charlotte Douglas International Airport, my mom, radiant and glowing, adjusting her oversized designer sunglasses as she managed a suitcase overflowing with luxury resort wear. My dad was schmoozing the airline staff, trying to charm his way into first-class upgrades. And my younger sister, Ava, was practically vibrating with excitement, clutching her crisp new passport as if it were a winning lottery ticket. They were all going, every single one of them, except for me. My mom finally turned to me, her smile bright but a little strained, and pressed a monthly light rail pass into my palm. "You are so grown up now, honey," she said, her voice full of forced confidence. "This pass will get you anywhere you need to go. The grocery store, the library, all over the city for the whole month. You are the big sister, you are mature. We know you can handle this. We just desperately need this trip to finally unwind in the sun. Be a good girl, okay?" my dad added with a wink. "Unlimited rides, kiddo. Your own little adventure. We will send grocery money every week through the Venmo app. Plenty for anything you could need. You won't have to worry about a thing." I managed a tight nod, gave my sister a quick, awkward hug, and then I stood there, watching as they vanished through the shimmering gateway of international departures, waving until they were just specks in the crowd. And then it was just me, heading home alone, that transit pass clutched so tightly in my fist, it felt like it was supposed to be worth more than just a ride. It was supposed to sustain me for 30 days while they lived a life of unimaginable luxury on the other side of the planet. But when they cut their trip short and finally walked back through our front door, my mother stopped dead in the entryway, her eyes blown wide with disbelief. She stumbled back a half step, a choked whisper escaping her lips. No, this isn't possible. This can't be real. Do you want to know how being abandoned with a transit pass and a series of empty promises led to the exact moment that made my parents question every decision they had ever made? Stick with me to the very end. You will see precisely what was waiting for them when they came home. If you were 13 and your family left you behind for a month-long luxury trip to the other side of the world with just a transit pass and promises of money that never materialized, what would you have done? Would you have tried to keep things quiet to avoid making waves, or would you have made sure they had to confront what they left you to deal with? Let me know in the comments below. I promise I read every single one. I got home from the airport that afternoon, the house already feeling cavernous and eerily quiet without the usual background noise of my family. The light rail ride back had been uneventful, the pass swiped without any issue, but stepping through the front door into the profound silence changed the atmosphere completely. There was no TV blaring, no arguments over the remote, just the low, constant hum of the refrigerator and the lonely sound of my own footsteps on the polished hardwood floors. I dropped my worn backpack in the entryway and marched straight to the kitchen, fueled by a stubborn determination to prove I could handle this. My parents had tucked a small envelope of emergency cash in the back of the junk drawer, about $50 in crumpled bills. I figured that, combined with the weekly money transfers they had sworn would come, would be more than enough to cover groceries and essentials until I got into a rhythm. I made a quick sandwich from the leftovers in the fridge, then set up my laptop on the dining room table to get a head start on the online summer coursework my teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had assigned. The home Wi-Fi was notoriously spotty, constantly dropping the connection, so I knew I would be spending a significant amount of my time at the public library branch a few miles away. The next morning, I packed a bag with my laptop charger, a notebook, and a refillable water bottle, and walked to the nearest light rail station. The pass worked like a charm again, a small victory that gave me a sliver of confidence. My first destination was the supermarket. I moved through the aisles with a sense of purpose, picking out the absolute necessities: milk, bread, peanut butter, a few cans of chicken noodle soup, a bunch of bananas, and a family-sized box of generic cornflakes. It wasn't exciting, but it felt responsible. The total came to just over $25. I paid with the cash from the envelope, feeling a small surge of pride at how carefully I had shopped. Back home, I meticulously organized my purchases in the pantry, lining up the cans with the labels facing out. I even snapped a quick photo on my phone, mostly because it looked so grown up, like a piece of evidence proving I was managing just fine on my own. That evening, I heated up a bowl of soup, streamed a comforting old TV show on my laptop, and messaged my best friend, Sophia, about how surreal but manageable the whole situation was. She was away at a summer arts camp, so her replies came in slow, sporadic bursts. But even those short, delayed texts were a lifeline that kept me feeling connected to the real world. The following day, I took the rail to the library again. The cool, conditioned air and the quiet hum of people working made it much easier to concentrate. I powered through one of the math modules, submitted it online, and then browsed the fiction section to pass the time before heading home. When I checked the family group chat that night, half expecting a quick "How are you?" or a notification about the first money transfer, what I found instead was a flood of pictures. The first was a sprawling buffet at their 7-star hotel, with plates piled high with lobster tails, shimmering caviar, and vibrant exotic fruits I couldn't even name. My mom's caption read, "Finally indulging in paradise." Then came a photo of Ava, grinning from ear to ear, posing in front of the towering Etihad Towers at sunset as the city lights began to twinkle. Dad wrote beneath it, "Literally touching the sky." Unbelievable. I zoomed in on my sister's ecstatic smile, her new sunglasses pushed up on her head. They all looked so carefree, so completely absorbed in their joy. Another message popped up. It was a picture of all three of them on a desert safari, perched on camels silhouetted against vast crimson dunes. Ava was waving enthusiastically, her laughter almost audible through the screen. There were no questions about how I was doing. No "did you get the money yet?" Just a continuous stream of their luxurious highlights. I set my phone down, the screen glowing with their happiness, and went to the fridge to figure out dinner. The milk was already half empty and the bananas were starting to brown. I poured a bowl of cornflakes and ate them dry to make the milk last longer. Sitting alone at the huge, empty dining table, the silence of the house felt more oppressive than ever before. The pride I had clung to, the idea that being called mature was a badge of honor, was beginning to crack and crumble. Later that night, standing alone in the dimly lit kitchen, I picked up my phone and opened the camera app, acting on an impulse I didn't fully understand. I panned the camera slowly across the sparsely populated shelves of the pantry, the half-eaten box of cereal on the counter, and the dark, silent rooms behind me. My voice was a low whisper when I started speaking. It has been a few days now. The house feels so big and hollow. They are posting all these amazing pictures from Abu Dhabi. Fancy dinners, the tallest buildings, camel rides. But nobody has asked if I am okay, or if the money they promised ever arrived. I stopped the recording, saved it to a private folder on my phone, and told myself it was just a video diary, a way to remember this strange time. The library became my sanctuary, my daily escape. It had comfortable chairs, reliable internet, and the quiet presence of other people, even if I never spoke to them. I would set up my workstation, submit my assignments, and then find myself mindlessly scrolling through the new updates in the family group chat. One afternoon, it was a video of Ava mesmerized by a spectacular fountain show, with jets of water dancing in time to music and a dazzling light display. My mom's caption was simple: "A truly magical evening." Dad sent a short video clip of them dining at a restaurant on top of a skyscraper, the city lights of Abu Dhabi stretching out like a blanket of stars below them. My sister looked so tiny and thrilled next to the floor-to-ceiling windows. I took screenshots of the fountain show, the rooftop dinner, and the camel ride, adding each one to that same hidden folder on my phone. Every new image was like a small paper cut, more proof of how completely they had disconnected from my reality, how deeply they were immersed in their own perfect world while I was back home, rationing bananas and skipping meals to make the last of the cash stretch. By then, the emergency envelope was down to its last few dollars. I had been incredibly careful, buying only the most basic necessities and eating smaller portions, but money vanishes with alarming speed when it is all you have. The promised weekly transfers still hadn't arrived. Not a single notification, not a word of explanation. I sent a casual text to my mom. "Hey, just wondering if the Venmo app is working on your end?" The message showed as read almost instantly, but no reply ever came. That evening, I recorded another video. The light in the kitchen was low as I opened the pantry door to show how barren it had become. "Still nothing from the app," I whispered to the camera lens. "I have been trying to make do with what was already here, but it is almost all gone now." They posted about a shopping spree at the mall today. Ava got a bunch of new clothes and toys. They just look so happy. My throat felt tight, but I saved the clip anyway. The ache in my chest grew heavier with each passing night. I would finish my meager dinner, which was often just a single slice of toast with a thin layer of peanut butter, and sit in the living room with every single lamp turned on, a futile attempt to push back the encroaching silence. The contrast between my life and theirs became brutally sharp whenever new photos were posted. Mom at a luxurious spa, wrapped in a fluffy white robe. Dad and Ava at an indoor ski resort inside a massive mall. All three of them posing playfully next to a gold-plated ATM, just for the spectacle of it. Every image screamed opulence, and every caption was utterly carefree. One night, after another unsatisfying meal, I opened the refrigerator again and filmed the desolate interior. "This is pretty much all that is left now," I said softly to my phone. "A little bit of bread, some condiments, not much else. They just sent pictures from a private yacht tour today." Ava is waving from the deck with the whole skyline behind her. It feels like they are living in a completely different universe. I ended the recording, slid down to the floor with my back against the cool kitchen cabinets, and just let the silence wash over me. The initial hurt was solidifying into something colder, something more resolute. It was this feeling that compelled me to keep collecting those screenshots and recording those clips. It wasn't anger yet, not quite. It was just this quiet, growing need to document the truth, that they had moved on so completely without a single glance back. That my sister was experiencing a world of wonders I could only witness through a cracked phone screen while I was counting breadcrumbs to make it through another day. Focusing on my laptop screen became a monumental task with each passing day. The lack of proper meals left me feeling dizzy and foggy-headed, and trying to complete my online summer assignments felt like wading through thick mud. My grades, which had always been excellent, started to slip. The work I submitted came back with lower scores and notes from Mrs. Henderson, pointing out missed details and rushed, incomplete answers. Her first email was gentle but direct. "Everything okay at home, Madison? This does not look like your usual standard of work." I typed back a short, evasive reply. "Yeah, just a bit of a weird summer, but I am fine." She wasn't convinced. Her next message requested a video call to check in. She wanted to see my face to make sure I was really keeping up. I reluctantly accepted, scheduling the call for the following afternoon. I set up my laptop at the kitchen table, carefully angling the camera so the bare countertops and empty fruit bowl stayed just out of the frame. Mrs. Henderson's kind face appeared on the screen, her familiar classroom posters visible in the background. She smiled warmly at first, but then her expression shifted to one of concern as she took in my tired eyes and pale complexion. "Madison, you look exhausted. What is going on? Where are your parents?" The question hung in the air between us. I had managed to hold myself together until that moment, but her genuine concern was the one thing that could break through my defenses. My voice came out small and shaky. They are in Abu Dhabi for the month, with my sister. It is just me here." Her eyebrows shot up in alarm. "Alone? For how long now?" I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. Over a week. They promised they would send money for food, but it has not come. I've been trying to get by, but I haven't really eaten properly in days. No one has checked on me. She went silent for a moment, her mind clearly processing the implications. As a teacher, she was a mandated reporter. She knew the protocol as well as I did. "This is not right, Madison," she said, her voice firm and resolute. "Stay exactly where you are. I'm calling someone who can help you right now." The call ended abruptly, and I sat there staring at the blank screen, my heart pounding in my chest. One part of me was flooded with relief, but the other part was terrified of what would happen next. Less than an hour later, the doorbell chimed. I crept to the window and saw Mrs. Henderson standing on the porch. But she wasn't alone. With her was a woman I recognized instantly. My Aunt Sarah, my mom's older sister, who lived just a few blocks away in the same neighborhood. I opened the door, and before I could utter a single word, Aunt Sarah pulled me into a fierce, tight hug, her arms trembling. "Oh, sweetie," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Why on earth didn't you call me?" Mrs. Henderson stepped inside behind her, her eyes immediately scanning the quiet hallway and the starkly empty living room. Aunt Sarah kept her hands on my shoulders, looking me over as if she were checking for injuries. "You are too thin," she said softly, her brow furrowed with worry. "Let us see the kitchen." They moved past me like a force of nature, and I trailed behind as my teacher opened the refrigerator door. The dim light inside spilled out, revealing the pathetic reality: a jar of pickles, half a loaf of stale bread, and a few nearly empty condiment bottles. The pantry was no better, containing just a couple of expired cans and an open bag of rice. Mrs. Henderson took photos with her phone, her expression hardening with each click. Aunt Sarah's jaw was clenched, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "This ends today." There were no lectures, no hesitation. Aunt Sarah simply grabbed my hand. "Come on, Madison. We are going to the grocery store right now. Mrs. Henderson drove us in her car to the nearby supermarket, the same one I had taken the rail to just a week before. But this time was completely different. They let me push the cart, and together we filled it with real food: chicken breasts, fresh vegetables, pasta, cheese, fruit, eggs, yogurt, all the things I hadn't dared to buy with my tiny, dwindling budget. The total at the checkout was more than I had ever spent on my own, but Aunt Sarah paid for it all without blinking an eye. Back at the house, we unpacked the groceries together, the kitchen suddenly feeling full and alive again. Mrs. Henderson excused herself to make some phone calls on the porch, while my aunt started making dinner: grilled chicken with rice and steamed broccoli. It was a simple meal, but the smell was absolutely incredible. As the chicken sizzled in the pan, I sat at the table and finally let the whole story pour out of me. I told them everything: the airport goodbye, the broken promises of money, and the endless stream of Abu Dhabi photos that made me feel completely invisible. I pulled out my phone and showed them some of the videos I had recorded: the empty shelves, my quiet voice describing the crushing loneliness. Then I showed them the screenshots: the lavish hotel buffets, Ava at the top of the Etihad Towers, the whole family on a private desert tour. Aunt Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she watched, her hand covering her mouth. "Your mother and I are going to have a serious talk," she muttered, a flash of anger crossing her face before she quickly suppressed it for my sake. Mrs. Henderson came back inside, her expression serious. She had spoken to someone from the county. "We are reporting this, Madison," she said, gently but firmly. "It is not safe or acceptable for a 13-year-old to be left in this situation, no matter what your parents thought you could handle." Dinner was ready soon after. We sat together at the table, and I had my first proper meal in what felt like a lifetime. The chicken was juicy, the rice was flavorful, and the broccoli was perfectly crisp. The feeling of warm food in my stomach was like waking up from a long, bad dream. Between bites, I answered their questions, explaining how I had tried to stretch every dollar, how the silence at night became deafening, and how seeing my little sister live a life of glamour while I scraped by was the thing that hurt the most. Aunt Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You are not alone anymore," she said, her voice full of conviction. "I am right here, and I am not going anywhere until this is sorted out." After we had cleared the table, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was a woman named Ms. Thompson from Child Protective Services, holding a clipboard and wearing a kind but professional expression. She introduced herself and asked if she could look around. I led her through the house while Mrs. Henderson and Aunt Sarah waited in the living room. She photographed the kitchen again, making a note of the newly purchased groceries, and asked me quiet, direct questions about my meals, my sleep, and how often anyone had checked in on me. I answered honestly about the missed money transfers, the lack of phone calls, and the way the celebratory posts from Abu Dhabi kept coming without a single, "How are you?" She spoke with me alone in my room for a while, making sure I felt safe to talk freely. Then she went back downstairs to meet with the adults. I could hear their low, serious voices from the top of the stairs. When she came back up to speak with me, her expression was resolute. "This situation meets the criteria for neglect," she explained gently. "We are opening a formal case tonight. You will not be spending another night alone here. We are making arrangements for you right away." By the time she left, a plan was in place. I would be staying with Aunt Sarah starting the next day, and a series of follow-up visits were already scheduled. Mrs. Henderson gave me another hug before she left, promising to check in with me daily. That night, Aunt Sarah stayed over, sleeping on the couch just in case I needed anything. Lying in my own bed later, with a full stomach for the first time in days, the house didn't feel quite so vast and empty anymore. Someone had finally seen what was happening, and they weren't walking away. I packed a duffel bag with a week's worth of clothes, my laptop, its charger, and a few favorite books. The next morning, Aunt Sarah helped me carry it out to her car, and we drove the short distance across the neighborhood to her house. The area was familiar, with the same style of homes and tree-lined streets, but stepping inside her front door felt like entering a completely different universe. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon, soft jazz music played from a speaker in the kitchen, and the whole house was filled with warm, welcoming light. She showed me to the guest room, a bright and airy space with sunlight filtering through clean white curtains. "Make yourself at home here for as long as you need," she said, setting my bag down on the floor. I unpacked my things slowly, hanging my shirts in the empty closet and placing my notebook on the nightstand. It already felt safer and more welcoming than the large, empty house I had just left behind. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Her parents had given her permission to come stay with me for a couple of weeks. It turned out Aunt Sarah had called them and suggested it, thinking it would help me feel more comfortable. Sophia arrived that afternoon with her own backpack and a huge, reassuring hug. "There is no way I'm letting you go through this by yourself," she whispered as we hauled her sleeping bag and things upstairs. Having her there transformed the guest room from a temporary space into something that felt like a continuous sleepover. We taped a few posters to the walls and set up her air mattress next to the bed. Dinner that first night was spaghetti with a rich meat sauce, buttery garlic bread, and a huge salad. Real comforting food that filled the table and my plate twice. Aunt Sarah let us help in the kitchen. Sophia chopped vegetables while I stirred the sauce under her watchful guidance. The room filled with easy laughter when a bit of sauce splattered, and we traded stories about school and summer plans, all the normal, everyday things I hadn't realized how much I missed. Sitting down to eat together, passing bowls around the table, engaging in actual conversation, it settled something deep inside me that had been frayed and anxious for days. After we cleaned up, we all curled up in the living room with big bowls of ice cream. Aunt Sarah asked if I was up for talking more about what had happened. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her the hidden folder of videos and screenshots I had collected. We watched a few of them together, the quiet, shaky clips of my kitchen, my small voice describing the emptiness, followed by the vibrant, glossy posts from Abu Dhabi, rolling in without a single check-in. Sophia's eyes widened at the photos of the opulent hotel suites and private tours. My aunt listened to my commentary without interrupting, her face tightening almost imperceptibly whenever one of my mom's captions popped up, bragging about pure bliss or total relaxation. When we were done, Aunt Sarah gently closed my phone. "You were incredibly brave to document all of this," she said, her voice soft but firm. "It hurts to see, but it is so important that you did." We talked late into the evening, not just rehashing every painful detail, but talking about how utterly ignored I had felt, and how the constant barrage of their glamorous photos made the silence and hunger at home feel so much worse. Sophia shared stories of times she had felt left out during her own family events, which made my own ache feel a little less isolating. My aunt looked me in the eye and promised that we would handle whatever came next as a team. The routine we established over the following days brought a sense of calm I hadn't expected. Mornings began with us making breakfast together, pancakes or eggs, with fresh fruit and real orange juice. In the afternoons, Sophia and I would work on our summer assignments side by side at the dining room table, keeping each other company while Aunt Sarah ran errands or worked from her home office. Evenings were for cooking simple, delicious meals: taco night, grilled cheese and tomato soup, or homemade pizzas. We were always all three of us in the kitchen, chopping, seasoning, and tasting as we went. The kitchen became the heart of the house, constantly filled with good smells and easy chatter. One evening, after a particularly good stir-fry dinner, my phone rang with a video call from my mom. Her face appeared on the screen, framed by the luxurious interior of their hotel room, with the iconic sail-shaped Burj Al Arab visible through the window behind her. She looked annoyed before she even said a word. "Madison, what on earth is going on? We've been contacted by your school and some government agency. Something about a formal investigation? Do you have any idea how this makes us look over here?" I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Aunt Sarah, who had been watching a movie with us, paused it and moved closer to my side. Sophia squeezed my arm under the table. My mom kept going, her voice rising with indignation. "We left you with everything you needed. You are blowing this completely out of proportion. I cannot believe you would cause this kind of drama instead of just handling things like the mature young woman we trusted you to be." The words stung, echoing the same phrases she had used at the airport: mature, handle it, trusted. But this time, I didn't shrink. "You didn't send the money," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I ran out of food. No one even checked on me." She cut me off instantly. "There was plenty to start with, and you know how to stretch a budget. This is just embarrassing. People from your father's work are asking questions now." At that, Aunt Sarah leaned into the camera's frame. "Jessica, this is Sarah. Your daughter was left without adequate food, support, or supervision. That is not drama. That is the reality of the situation. The authorities are involved because a child was neglected." My mom's face contorted with anger. "You stay out of this, Sarah. This is a family matter." The call ended abruptly after that, the screen going black. The room was quiet for a moment. Then my aunt pulled me into a side hug. "You did nothing wrong by speaking up," she said firmly. Sophia nodded in agreement, her eyes fierce on my behalf. The tension from the call lingered in the air, but having them there, protecting me and believing me, transformed it into something bearable. For the first time in my life, I felt shielded instead of exposed. Ms. Thompson from CPS scheduled several follow-up visits over the next few days, each one more detailed and thorough than the last. She met with me privately in Aunt Sarah's cozy living room, asking specific questions about our family's daily routines before the trip, how often my parents normally checked in with me, and exactly what kind of support they had promised versus what they had delivered. I answered every question with complete honesty, describing the rushed goodbye at the airport, the untouched money transfers, and the way my meals had dwindled to almost nothing. She also conducted separate interviews with Aunt Sarah and Mrs. Henderson, carefully gathering their observations from the day they had found me. Mrs. Henderson provided copies of my submitted school assignments, highlighting the noticeable drop in quality that had first triggered her concern. My aunt handed over the receipts from her emergency grocery runs, with timestamps that clearly showed how urgently intervention had been needed. Together, they were building a comprehensive and undeniable file. With Aunt Sarah's signature as my temporary guardian, Ms. Thompson was granted permission to access my phone records, including call logs and message history. The entire family group chat thread was printed out, and it was damning. Page after page showed posts from Abu Dhabi, photos of hotel buffets that cost hundreds of dollars, my dad on a yacht at sunset, Ava feeding giraffes at a private zoo, my mom posing next to a Lamborghini in a glistening mall. And in all those pages, there was not a single direct question to me about my food, my safety, or my general well-being. The contrast was stark and unsettling when laid out in a chronological timeline. My own videos were reviewed with equal care. Ms. Thompson watched each one in its entirety, noting the dates and times from the file properties. She saw the clear progression from sparse shelves to a nearly empty kitchen. She paired my videos with the initial photos Mrs. Henderson had taken on that first evening, creating a powerful visual narrative of how quickly my situation had deteriorated. Aunt Sarah contributed household bills from the months leading up to the trip, showing our family's normal grocery spending patterns, which made the sudden, complete absence of purchases during my parents' vacation stand out even more. Mrs. Henderson added my school attendance records, which confirmed I'd been logging in for my online classes every single day, effectively ruling out any potential claim that I had been away or unreachable. Through it all, I was allowed to sit in on some of the meetings, listening as the adults coordinated their efforts. Hearing the evidence described so objectively made it feel real in a new, more solid way. It was no longer just my private hurt. It was a documented, verifiable case of neglect. One afternoon, after a particularly long session, Ms. Thompson pulled me aside. "Your parents have been formally notified of the severity of the case," she explained calmly. "They received an official email that requires a formal response and a detailed explanation for their actions. Because of the duration of your being left alone and the complete lack of supervision, this case is moving forward quickly." She paused, watching my reaction closely. "They have changed their flights. They are coming back 2 weeks earlier than they had planned." The news hit me like a physical wave. One part of me felt a surge of panic at the thought of seeing them so soon. But another, stronger part of me felt something close to resolve. That evening at dinner, I told Aunt Sarah and Sophia that I wanted to be at my old house when my parents arrived. I wanted to face them directly. I wanted them to walk into the reality they had so casually ignored. My aunt exchanged a long look with Miss Thompson over the phone later that night. They both agreed that it could be arranged, with official supervision present, as long as I felt safe and supported throughout the process. "Your voice is the one that matters most here, Madison," Ms. Thompson had told me. "If being there helps you feel heard and gives you a sense of closure, then we will make it happen." The days leading up to their return were filled with a strange, taut energy. The mornings were calm and grounding. I would help my aunt with breakfast, and then Sophia and I would finish the last of our summer work. Her presence, a constant source of encouragement. The afternoons were often filled with another meeting or a phone call, adding more details to the growing file. In the evenings, we would talk it all through, with my aunt listening without judgment as I voiced the confusing mix of nerves and determination that was churning inside me. Sophia stayed close, suggesting we make a list of things I wanted to say in case I got overwhelmed. We wrote down simple, undeniable bullet points on a piece of paper. The missed money, the unanswered texts, the feeling of being invisible. Reading them back to myself helped steady my resolve. Aunt Sarah shared stories from when she and my mom were kids, gently reminding me that this wasn't my fault, that some patterns of prioritizing appearances over care went back a long way. Her steady, unwavering presence anchored everything. Ms. Thompson checked in daily, reviewing the safety plan for their arrival. Who would be in the room, how I could signal if I needed a break, and what would happen immediately afterward. Knowing that a team of professionals had my back helped ease the lingering fear. By the night before their arrival, the jumble of emotions inside me had settled into something firmer. I wasn't the scared kid waiting alone in an empty house anymore. I had proof, I had support, and I had a clear, unshakable sense of what I deserved: basic care, attention, and safety. Facing them wasn't going to erase what had happened, but it was going to force them to finally see it. Lying in the guest room bed, with Sophia already fast asleep on the air mattress beside me, I stared at the ceiling and felt the shift inside me. The worry was still there, but underneath it was a growing certainty that speaking my truth, surrounded by people who believed in me, was the strongest and most important thing I could do. The front door swung open that afternoon without any warning. My dad breezed in first, pulling a brand new, oversized suitcase, still faintly dusted with desert sand. He was laughing over his shoulder about the ridiculous heat at the Abu Dhabi airport. My mom followed close behind, her designer sunglasses perched in her hair, her arms laden with glossy shopping bags from the luxury mall, and a giant, plush camel for Ava. My little sister skipped in last, grinning from ear to ear and clutching a glittery snow globe of the Etihad Towers, already babbling about a vending machine that dispensed gold bars and the incredible aquarium tunnel she had walked through. All the laughter and chatter died the instant they crossed the threshold into the living room. Ms. Thompson stood at the head of the kitchen table, dressed in a formal navy blazer, a thick folder open in front of her. Mrs. Henderson leaned against the kitchen counter, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Aunt Sarah sat tall and straight in the chair opposite me, her hand resting protectively on my shoulder, and Sophia sat to my right, her back straight as a board, her eyes locked forward. Every single piece of evidence we had meticulously prepared was laid out across the dining table like a hand of cards no one wanted to play. My dad's easy smile vanished. My mom's shopping bag slipped from her grasp, hitting the tile floor with a series of soft, muffled thuds. Ava froze mid-sentence, her snow globe still held up like a trophy. Ms. Thompson was the first to speak, her voice calm and official. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, please come in and have a seat. We have some important matters to go over." They didn't move. My mom's gaze darted from one stony face to another, finally landing on the table. I watched as her eyes widened in horror as she began to register what was spread out before her. The first sheet, a series of high-resolution photos Mrs. Henderson had taken on the day they found me. The refrigerator door wide open, revealing the nearly empty shelves. The expiration dates clearly visible on the few pitiful items left inside. The second, the grocery receipts from Aunt Sarah's emergency shopping trips, with bright yellow highlighter marking the dates and massive totals, all from the days immediately following their discovery. The third, printed screenshots of the entire family group chat, dozens of pages detailing their extravagant vacation, photos of $200 a plate hotel buffets, my dad on a yacht at sunset, Ava feeding giraffes on a private safari, my mom posing beside a gleaming Lamborghini inside the mall, and not one single message asking if I was alive, let alone okay. The fourth, a series of still frames taken from my own videos, my own tired, pale face in the corner. The dark, empty kitchen. The pantry doors flung open to show nothing but dust and shadows. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. She took an involuntary step backward, her heel catching on the threshold of the door. The words she spoke were barely audible, a choked, shaking whisper. No way, this can't be real. I stood up slowly from my chair. Every pair of eyes in the room turned to me. My voice, when I spoke, didn't waver. "You always told me that actions have consequences," I said, looking directly at her, then at my dad. "This time, they are yours." An immense silence swallowed the room. Ava's snow globe slipped from her trembling fingers and shattered on the tile floor. Glitter and water spread out in a shimmering puddle, like fake snow melting away. My dad finally found his voice, sputtering, "Madison! We can explain all of this." Ms. Thompson raised a hand, cutting him off. "There will be a time for explanations under supervised conditions. Right now, I am here to deliver this emergency custody order." She lifted the top document from her folder. The official state seal was embossed across the top. Effective immediately, Madison is placed in temporary protective custody with her maternal aunt, Sarah Price. You are not permitted to remove her from this residence or have any unsupervised contact with her until a further court order is issued. My mom's knees seemed to buckle slightly. My dad reflexively caught her elbow to steady her. Ava, confused and scared, finally started to cry, her wide eyes darting between all the solemn adults. I didn't look away from my parents. "You chose a month of luxury over making sure your own daughter had food to eat," I said quietly, the words hanging in the still air. "This is what that choice looks like." Ms. Thompson continued, her voice steady and unwavering. "A full dependency hearing has been scheduled within the next 10 days. Parenting classes, psychological evaluations, and supervised visitation may be offered, pending your full compliance. Until then, you will need to make arrangements to stay elsewhere tonight." My dad's face went white with shock. "You can't just take our child from us. This isn't a punishment, Mr. Miller," Ms. Thompson interjected, her tone sharp. "This is a protection. The evidence is unequivocal. Prolonged absence of adult supervision, failure to provide basic necessities, and a complete and total lack of welfare checks on a minor. The laws in North Carolina are unambiguous on this matter." Aunt Sarah squeezed my shoulder once, a small grounding pressure. Under the table, Sophia reached over and took my hand. My mom's eyes were filled with tears now, but they didn't move me anymore. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Madison, baby, we didn't mean for—" "You didn't think," I finished for her. "And now, all of us have to live with that." Ava's sobs grew louder. My dad bent down to comfort her, his movements automatic, but his eyes never left the damning evidence spread across the table. Ms. Thompson closed her folder with a soft, final snap. "Sheriff's deputies are on standby outside to ensure a peaceful exit if needed. I would strongly recommend you cooperate fully." The room remained frozen for another long, heavy moment, the shattered snow globe leaking its artificial magic across the floor. In that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel hatred. I just felt finished. Finished with pretending everything was okay. The courtroom smelled of old wood, stale coffee, and disinfectant. I sat between Aunt Sarah and Ms. Thompson at the petitioner's table, my hands folded neatly in my lap to keep them from shaking. Across the narrow aisle, my parents sat stiffly next to their attorney. My dad wore a suit that seemed a size too tight, and my mom clutched a tissue she hadn't yet used. Ava wasn't present. The judge had ruled that the hearing would be too distressing for a 9-year-old. The judge, an older woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense voice, called the case. Ms. Thompson stood up first, methodically laying out the details of the emergency removal and presenting the evidence binder, which was now the thickness of a phone book. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Every photograph, every receipt, and every text message spoke volumes on its own. When it was my turn to speak, the bailiff had me raise my right hand and swear an oath. I walked to the witness stand, feeling the weight of every eye in the room on me. The court reporter's fingers hovered over the keys of her machine. I focused on the judge and kept my answers clear and direct. "Yes, Your Honor." They left me with a transit pass and promises of money that never arrived. Yes, I ran out of food after about the first week, yes. No adult checked on me for the entire time they were gone. No, Your Honor, I did not feel safe being alone. I told the judge how the posts from Abu Dhabi kept coming. Images of private jets, 5-course dinners, and my little sister riding water slides at a massive water park, all while I was rationing cereal and recording videos of empty shelves in the middle of the night. I explained how the fear had slowly morphed into anger, and how that anger had eventually turned into a quiet resolve to not be silent. My voice remained steady, even when tears threatened to spill over. From her seat, Aunt Sarah gave me a small, encouraging nod. Sophia wasn't allowed inside the courtroom, but I knew she was waiting right outside the doors, and that knowledge gave me strength. My parents' attorney tried to paint the entire situation as a simple misunderstanding. The Millers are loving, devoted parents who simply misjudged their older daughter's maturity, he argued, his tone smooth and practiced. A one-time error in judgment does not and should not warrant a permanent separation of this family. The judge then turned to me and asked me directly what I wanted. I looked straight at her, my gaze unwavering. "I want to stay with my aunt," I said clearly. "I don't feel safe going back to them. Not now. Maybe not ever. I need time and space to heal without having to pretend that everything is fine." The guardian ad litem, a court-appointed advocate whose only job was to represent my best interests, stood up next. She had interviewed me twice at Aunt Sarah's house in the days leading up to the hearing. Madison has been consistent in her account of the events, she reported to the court. She is exhibiting clear signs of emotional neglect and anxiety that are directly tied to the incident of abandonment. Forcing reunification at this stage would likely cause further trauma. The current placement with her maternal aunt is stable, nurturing, and in the child's best interest. My mom finally spoke when the judge gave her the opportunity, her voice cracking with emotion. "We made a terrible, terrible mistake. We will do anything. Classes, therapy, whatever the court orders. Please, just please don't take our daughter away from us," my dad added quietly, his eyes downcast. "We honestly thought she was old enough. We were wrong." The judge took a long, deliberate pause, reviewing the thick file one last time. Then she delivered her ruling. Temporary legal custody is hereby awarded to Ms. Sarah Price, with all the rights and responsibilities of a legal guardian. The parents are ordered to complete an intensive parenting education course, begin individual therapy, and undergo a full psychological evaluation before any form of supervised visitation can be considered. The department will monitor their progress. We will hold a review hearing in 90 days. She then looked directly at me, and her expression softened. "Young lady," she said kindly, "your voice was heard today. You are safe now." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for months. Back at Aunt Sarah's house that evening, another layer of the immense weight I had been carrying finally lifted. There would be no more wondering when the next angry phone call or demanding email would come. No more pressure to forgive and forget before I was ready. The temporary order meant structure, it meant boundaries, and most importantly, it meant I had a choice. Ms. Thompson explained the next steps to us over takeout pizza. The classes for my parents had already been scheduled. Their therapists would be required to report on their compliance and progress directly to the court. Visitation, if it ever happened, would be entirely on my terms, in a supervised setting, and only when I said I was ready. I didn't hate them. I just didn't trust them with my well-being anymore. That night, Aunt Sarah tucked me into bed like I was a little kid again, brushing the hair away from my forehead. "You were incredible today, Madison," she whispered. "I am so, so proud of the strength you showed." For the first time since that day at the airport, I fell asleep without compulsively checking my phone for new photos from another world, without wondering if anyone cared whether I had eaten. The court had drawn a line in the sand, and for now I was on the side where I finally felt seen. The final hearing took place on a quiet weekday morning. I wore a simple navy dress that Aunt Sarah had helped me pick out. Nothing fancy, just something that made me feel composed and put together. It was the same courtroom, the same judge, but the atmosphere felt different, less urgent, more conclusive. Ms. Thompson was the first to present her updated report. My parents had, in fact, completed the required parenting classes and had started individual therapy. However, the progress notes from their therapists showed a continued pattern of resistance, with frequent excuses about work stress and a persistent minimization of what had actually happened. The psychologist's evaluation was even more damning, flagging ongoing patterns of prioritizing personal desires over child welfare. The guardian ad litem spoke next. Madison has thrived in her current placement, she stated clearly. Her engagement in school has returned to its previously high level, and her emotional stability has markedly improved. Forcing reunification at this time would almost certainly undo that progress. When the judge asked if I wished to speak, I stood up without a moment's hesitation. I am glad they are taking the classes, I began, my voice clear and steady. I truly hope they learn from this, but I am not ready to go back. With my aunt, I finally feel safe every single day. I feel heard and cared for, not like an afterthought. Staying with her is where I need to be. The judge nodded, reviewing the thick file one last time. Then she delivered her final ruling. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, the recommendations from Child Protective Services and the guardian ad litem, and the child's own clear and consistent wishes, permanent legal guardianship of Madison Miller is hereby granted to Ms. Sarah Price. Parental rights will remain intact, but primary custody shall reside with the guardian until further court order or the child's emancipation. This court finds this arrangement to be unequivocally in the best interest of the minor. It was over. There was no appeal timeline mentioned, no forced visits looming on the horizon, just the promise of stability. Life at Aunt Sarah's settled into a rhythm that was steady, comforting, and good. Mornings began with the smell of coffee and us deciding what to make for breakfast. Blueberry muffins one day, scrambled eggs with spinach, and feta the next. I would set the table while she flipped pancakes, and we would talk about my school day or our plans for the upcoming weekend. Sophia came over most afternoons, her parents thrilled that she had a safe and positive place to hang out. We would do our homework together at the kitchen island, then help prep for dinner, chopping onions, seasoning chicken, and learning little kitchen tricks, like exactly how much garlic is too much garlic. Evenings were our time. We would grill burgers in the backyard or make homemade pizza, stretching the dough across the counter while music played. Sophia and I would take turns choosing the toppings, laughing when our culinary experiments went wrong. Aunt Sarah would join in, sharing stories from her own teenage years, making the house feel full and alive in a way mine never had. I started handling more responsibilities on my own, too, making grocery lists, budgeting the allowance my aunt gave me, and planning a few meals for the week. It wasn't about proving my maturity anymore. It was about building real-life skills in a place where making a mistake didn't mean you would be abandoned. Some weekends, we would drive to local parks for a hike or visit the farmer's market, picking out fresh produce and trying new recipes at home. Sophia slept over so often that the guest room was essentially split between us. We would stay up late talking about everything and nothing, the kind of easy, meandering conversations I had missed most when I was all alone. My old family tried to reach out a few times, cards and emails that were forwarded through the caseworker. I read them, and I felt a complicated mix of sadness and distance. And then I chose not to respond. It wasn't out of hatred. I just wasn't ready. And the most important thing I had learned was that I didn't have to be. Protecting my own peace wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Ava's name came up sometimes in the official reports. She was doing okay, adjusting to the new reality. I hoped she was safe. I hoped my parents were genuinely learning. But I didn't need to be a part of that chapter of their lives to wish them well from a safe distance. Looking back now, I understand what a real family is. It isn't just about blood or a shared last name or living at the same address. It is about showing up every single day. It is about noticing when someone is hurting and putting their needs right alongside your own. It is about warm meals and honest talks and the quiet, unshakable assurance that you matter, not as an afterthought, but as a priority. Irresponsible parents do face real consequences in this country, and that system worked for me when I needed it most. But the bigger lesson, the one I carry with me, is that simply speaking your truth, even when your voice is shaking, can change everything. And accepting help from the adults who actually see you isn't a weakness. It is a sign of incredible strength. If you are watching this and you have ever felt invisible in your own home, please know that you are not alone. There are people who will listen. There are systems designed to protect you, and there are ways to build a life where you feel truly safe and valued. You deserve that. I found my way to it, and it all started the moment I refused to stay silent. End of the story.